So the U.S. men's national team they just made World Cup history in a 2-0 victory over Australia.
Yeah, they really did.
But, they didn't do it with some kind of like pristine tactical masterclass or a breathtaking wonder goal.
No, not at all.
They did it by becoming the absolute first team in a century to rely on back-to-back own goals.
Which is just wild to think about.
It's insane. And you add in a seething Australian team,
Yeah.
an injured U.S. star player, and a referee with a literal history of match fixing.
Right, the referee drama.
Yeah, and suddenly this game was less of a clean math equation and more of a chaotic crime scene.
Oh, absolutely. And, well, if you only look at the scoreboard, you miss the entire psychological thriller that played out underneath it.
Exactly. Which is why we've gathered a massive stack of sources for you today on this deep dive. We are pulling from FIFA match reports, deep tactical breakdowns on Reddit.
Some really good stuff on there, actually.
Yeah, super detailed. Plus Sky Sports coverage and some absolutely scorched earth post-match reactions from the Australian media.
They were not holding back.
Oh, they were furious. So our mission today is to cut through all of that post-match noise for you. We're going to look at how the U.S. survived without their best player. The tactical chess match that forced these bizarre own goals, and of course that explosive referee controversy that had the Aussies screaming robbery.
It's a lot to unpack.
It really is. But, I mean, before we even get to the referee's whistle, we have to talk about how a pundit in a TV studio basically cornered both of these teams into a psychological pressure cooker.
Oh, right, the TV drama.
Yeah, I'm talking about Mike Grella.
The journeyman turned CBS pundit.
Right. So for those of you who might have missed the pre-match circus, Grella is a former player, bounced around a bit, played for Leeds, finished up his career in Major League Soccer.
Good player, but, maybe not a global superstar.
Exactly. So after the World Cup draw, he goes on national television and just casually labels the Australian national team the Socceroos, a layup for the U.S.
Just completely dismiss them.
Entirely.
Yeah.
And then, right before kickoff, he goes on the massively popular Pat McAfee show and doubles down.
Oh, yeah, he really went for it.
He literally says the Aussies only wear a yellow shirt so they can, confuse themselves with Brazil.
Unbelievable.
And he adds that they've never won anything.
I mean, it's a masterclass in modern sports provocation.
It is. And, okay, let's unpack this, because to me this feels like walking into a crowded rival pub, loudly declaring everyone inside is a lightweight, and then just sitting back to watch the brawl.
That's a great way to put it.
Does this kind of extreme bulletin board material actually change how players kick a ball? Or is it just, I don't know, reality TV drama to farm engagement from the fans?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, modern football media doesn't just entertain, it actually dictates the tactical risk profile of the match.
Wait, really? How so?
I mean, a professional athlete doesn't suddenly acquire better ball control just because a pundit insulted them, right?
Right.
Yeah. But Grella's comments created a massive asymmetric risk. By calling Australia a layup, he basically backed the U.S. coach into a corner.
Oh, I see.
The U.S. couldn't just play for a pragmatic, boring 1-0 win anymore. They had to prove total dominance.
They had to live up to the trash talk.
Exactly. They had to validate American superiority while Australia was suddenly handed this, ultimate underdog motivation.
Right, the disrespect card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it forced the U.S. into a much more aggressive tactical posture right out of the gate.
Which was incredibly risky, considering the U.S. was walking into this match completely devoid of their main attacking threat.
Huge missing piece there.
Christian Pulisic was out with a lingering calf injury. So you're expected to dominate the game, but you're missing the exact player who usually orchestrates that dominance.
Right, the guy who unlocks the defense.
Exactly. So both managers are staring down this immense external pressure, and they both resort to these massive tactical gambles.
And while breaking down a team that sits deep is one of the hardest problems to solve in modern football,
For sure.
the Australian coach, Tony Popovich, he deployed a 5-4-1 low block.
Okay, so for the listeners visualizing this, what does that actually look like?
It means 5 defenders across the back with a line of 4 midfielders sitting barely 10 yards in front of them.
Wow, just a wall of players.
It completely suffocates the penalty area. There is simply no space to run into. I mean, even elite passing teams like Spain in their game against Cape Verde earlier in the tournament.
Oh, yeah, that was frustrating to watch.
Right. They can spend 90 minutes passing the ball back and forth around a low block without ever finding a crack to shoot through.
So Mauricio Pochettino, the U.S. coach, he has to figure out how to break a brick wall without his best sledgehammer.
Exactly. Pulisic is out.
So he opts for a two-striker system, pairing Ricardo Pepi with Fuller and Balogun. And honestly, if you were watching this game at home, you probably spent the first 30 minutes yelling at your TV because Pepi wasn't taking any shots.
He seemed totally out of the play.
Yeah, he seemed completely invisible in the broadcast.
But that's exactly why you have to look past the broadcast camera angle. The Reddit tactical breakdown we reviewed highlighted something really brilliant about Pepi's movement.
Right, he was doing the dirty work.
His job was never to score in this setup. His job was to be the anchor. He was physically engaging the Australian center backs, like throwing his body weight into them.
Just battling them.
Yeah, making dummy runs and dragging them just half a step out of their assigned zones.
It's like a decoy car in a bank heist.
Yeah.
Like Pepi's whole job is to keep the police, the center backs, occupied in the middle of the street so Balogun can sneak through the back door and exploit the empty vault.
That's a perfect analogy. That decoy work is what we call attacking the channels.
Okay.
When Pepi drags a center back centrally, a channel, which is just a physical gap, opens up between that center back and the wide fullback.
And Balogun is fast enough to exploit that?
He is incredibly fast, and he used those exact channels to tear into the Australian defense. But, you know, we also have to look at what was happening on the other side of the pitch, because Tony Popovich made a wildly controversial gamble of his own.
Oh, man. A gamble that had the Australian media questioning his sanity.
They were tearing him apart.
Popovich benched two of his most explosive players, Nestori Irankunda and Connor Metcalf. And keep in mind, these were his goal scorers from their previous win against Turkey.
Right, the guys who actually got them points.
Instead, he starts Matthew Leckie and Nishan Velupillay. Like, you're facing a U.S. team trying to prove dominance, and you bench your sharpest weapons.
Well, Popovich was heavily criticized, obviously, but he defended the decision by citing the physical reality of tournament football.
The fatigue factor.
Exactly. The first half of a World Cup match against a high-pressing team is basically an exhausting track meet. He wanted to absorb that initial wave of American energy using fresh legs out wide, holding his explosive goal scorers in reserve to unleash them in the second half when the U.S. defenders started to tire.
Okay, that makes sense on paper.
He actually stated post-match that the pace was so physically overwhelming, he wished he had rotated even more players.
Wow, it's the ultimate dilemma, right? You try to manage player fatigue over a month-long tournament, but by holding back your best players to weather the storm, you completely hand the steering wheel over to the opponent.
You do. You're just reacting.
And the U.S. took that wheel and drove straight into the history books.
They really did.
The first half was pure chaos. The U.S. scores 2 goals, and the first one comes from Balogun, making one of those surging runs through the channel Pepi opened up.
Beautiful run.
Balogun fires it across the goal face, and Australian defender Cameron Burgess knocks it into his own net.
A brutal moment for him.
Which brings us to a mind-blowing statistical reality. The USA became the absolute first and only team in the nearly 100-year history of the World Cup to profit from own goals in consecutive games.
That is just a wild stat.
First against Paraguay, now against Australia. I mean, is the U.S. just stumbling into the luckiest streak in football history, or what?
Well, I'm going to stop you right there because framing this as luck strips the U.S. of the credit for their tactical mechanics.
Okay, fair enough.
What's fascinating here is how aggressive pressing mathematically forces these exact errors. We call it a tactical overload.
A tactical overload.
Yeah, the U.S. wasn't just blindly kicking the ball into the box. They were sending 4 or 5 attackers hurtling at a retreating defensive line at a dead sprint.
You're basically forcing the defender into a panic state.
Exactly. You're forcing them to make a split-second physical action while facing their own goalkeeper.
Which is terrifying for a defender.
Let's look at the geometry of that Balogun run. He didn't just run fast. He angled his run to entirely cut off Burgess's passing lane to his own goalkeeper.
So Burgess had no safe out.
Right. Burgess knows if he misses the ball, a U.S. striker is just tapping it in behind him.
Yeah.
But if he tries to clear it, he's doing it off balance at full speed toward his own net. That isn't a fluke own goal. That is engineered pressure resulting in a forced mechanical failure by the defender.
You build the trap, and eventually someone steps in it.
Exactly.
Then, right before halftime, the U.S. springs another trap. Alex Freeman, a 21-year-old defender, and fun fact, the son of NFL Super Bowl winner Antonio Freeman.
Oh, that's a cool detail.
Yeah, he heads the ball into the net. But the assistant referee immediately puts his flag up. Offside. Goal disallowed.
The heartbreak.
But then we get the intervention of VAR, the video assistant referee.
The eye in the sky.
Right.
VAR reviews the footage, draws the digital lines across the pitch, and determines Freeman was actually kept onside by an Australian defender's trailing foot.
By mere inches.
The call is overturned. The goal stands.
And that single overturned call secures a mountain of milestones for the U.S. program.
Huge implications.
They get their first back-to-back World Cup win since 1930. Goalkeeper Matt Freese records his first ever World Cup shutout.
Incredible for him.
And for the first time in their history, the U.S. clinches a spot in the knockout rounds, the last 32, before they even play their final group stage game.
A monumental achievement that totally validated Pochettino's two-striker gamble.
Absolutely.
But, while the Americans were celebrating the precision of VAR, that exact same digital ruling became the spark that ignited a massive powder keg on the Australian bench.
Oh, it exploded. The final whistle blows and the entire Australian camp just erupts. The commentators are describing Coach Popovich as seething.
He was visibly furious.
He is marching straight for the match officials. Nestor Irankunda, the young winger who got benched in the first half, gets to a microphone and straight up calls the referee's performance a stinker.
A stinker, yeah. He didn't hold back.
He claims the ref gave every single 50-50 call to the United States.
And to be fair, the Australian staff came armed with very specific technical grievances against the German referee, Felix Dwyer.
Yeah, let's break down the rap sheet. Assistant coach Paul Ocon was furious about that second U.S. goal. Yes, Alex Freeman was technically onside, but Ocon argued that another U.S. player, Florian Balogun, was standing in an offside position and physically impeded the Australian goalkeeper, Patrick Beach, preventing him from making the save.
A classic interference argument.
Then you have the penalty shouts. The Aussies felt they had two clear penalties ignored, one where Christian Volpato went down clutching his face, and another involving Metcalf.
And the foul count was pretty lopsided.
Very. The final foul count was heavily skewed. 16 fouls called against Australia, only 12 against the U.S.
Right.
But the most surreal image of the entire match, deep into the second half, the referee, Felix Dwyer, literally collapses under the pitch with a cramp.
Yeah, players from both teams had to, stand over him, stretching out his hamstring.
He was bizarre.
Reporters were tweeting that he might genuinely need a stretcher to leave the field.
Which is an incredibly bad look for an official supposed to be managing the elite pace of a World Cup game.
Yep.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Frankly, this is the dark cloud hanging over the whole match. Felix Dwyer isn't just any referee.
No, he is not.
He has a highly documented, notorious history. Back in 2004, Dwyer was implicated in a massive match-fixing scandal in Germany.
A massive scandal.
He was an assistant referee who literally accepted a €300 bribe from another official to look the other way. This isn't a rumor. It's a proven fact of his past.
Yeah, it's public record.
Just a few years ago, Jude Bellingham, the English superstar, was fined €40,000 for bringing it up after a controversial loss. So the Australian team stepped onto the pitch fully aware of exactly who had the whistle.
I hear you, but put yourself in the Australian shoes for a second.
Okay.
When you know the person regulating the rules of engagement has a literal history of taking bribes, a 50-50 call isn't just bad luck anymore.
It feels targeted.
It feels like theft. It fundamentally breaks a team's psychological trust in the game. Every single whistle against you feels like part of a predetermined script.
Wow, yeah.
Instead of focusing on your spatial awareness or your tactics, your brain is consumed by paranoia.
I understand the psychological paranoia, I really do. But I have to push back on the victimhood narrative here.
Okay, let's hear it.
Do we really believe the referee orchestrated this? Look at the tactical reality we just broke down. Popovich literally admitted his team was too slow and flat in the first half.
That's true, he did say that.
They got physically outrun. Dwyer didn't force Cameron Burgess to kick the ball into his own net. Doesn't complaining about the referee just become a convenient smokescreen when you get tactically outplayed?
Well, it is entirely possible for two things to be true at once.
Fair point.
Dwyer could have had an atrocious, inconsistent game. A stinker, as Irankunda said, while Australia was simultaneously outplayed tactically.
Right.
When a team is constantly a second late to the ball because they are fatigued and chasing a high press, they are naturally going to commit more fouls.
Because they're always a step behind.
Exactly. The 16-12 foul count isn't necessarily evidence of bias. It's often the mathematical byproduct of a team that doesn't have the ball and is desperately trying to win it back.
That makes a lot of sense.
The optics of Zweyer's past are a nightmare for FIFA, for sure. But the evidence on the pitch points to an American team that dictated the physical terms of the match.
And they dictated those terms with a massive tailwind behind them. Because while Australia felt completely alienated and robbed by the environment, the U.S. team felt invincible.
Oh, the home crowd.
We cannot ignore the geographic reality of this game. It was played at Lumen Field in Seattle.
One of the most notoriously loud stadiums in the world.
It was electric. A huge pre-match storyline was the playing surface. Actually, they transitioned the stadium from artificial turf to real grass, specifically for the World Cup.
Which the players always prefer.
U.S. legend Casey Keller even went on record hoping this forces the NFL's Seattle Seahawks to keep the grass permanently.
Let's hope so.
But the grass was just the stage. You had 70,000 roaring fans, a literal sea of denim in USA jerseys. After the game, the stadium didn't empty.
Nobody wanted to leave.
Tens of thousands of people stayed in their seats just to sing John Denver's Country Roads together.
MLS Commissioner Don Garber wasn't exaggerating when he said Seattle essentially invented modern American soccer supporter culture.
Yeah.
The hostility and the sheer volume they generate are unparalleled in the United States.
You could see it affecting the players. U.S. goalkeeper Matt Freese called the crowd a genuine 12th man.
It's a real phenomenon.
So what does this all mean? We obsess over formations, we argue about VAR lines and low blocks, but how much does 70,000 screaming people actually alter the physical reality of a football match?
This raises an important question, and it goes far beyond just getting pumped up.
Okay, hit me with the science.
The concept of home field advantage is deeply rooted in physiological and evolutionary science. Studies actually show that a roaring home crowd doesn't just trigger an adrenaline spike for the home players, giving them a literal boost in stamina and pressing speed. It subconsciously influences the referee.
Wait, really?
Yes, referees are human, and there is an evolutionary survival instinct to appease an angry, roaring mob.
Oh, wow.
If 70,000 primates are screaming at you, your brain quietly tells you to agree with them to avoid danger. 50-50 calls naturally skew toward the home team because the human brain wants to avoid the immense social friction of angering that many people.
Wow. So the noise literally bends the officiating.
It bends the officiating, and it drastically increases the cognitive load for the visiting team.
Right.
For Australia, that wall of sound is paralyzing. It disrupts verbal communication between the center backs. It makes a one-goal deficit feel insurmountable.
Because the crowd is just suffocating you.
Exactly. When every single touch of the ball is met with deafening hostility, the pitch feels incredibly small. It perfectly aligns with Popovich noting his players looked heavy-legged.
Right.
They weren't just fighting the U.S. press, they were fighting the sensory overload of Lumen Field.
A perfect storm. The U.S. has the brilliant tactical setup from Pochettino. They have the evolutionary advantage of 70,000 people bending the environment in their favor, and Australia is trapped in the middle, fighting the noise, the high press, and their own deep-seated mistrust of the referee.
It was a multifaceted triumph for the United States, and a brutal, deeply frustrating lesson for Australia as they limp toward their final group game.
What an absolute roller coaster. Let's do a quick recap of the massive amount of ground we covered today.
Yeah, we covered a lot.
We started with Mike Grella's TV studio trash talk that forced the U.S. into an aggressive, high-risk posture. We broke down the tactical heist of Pochettino's two-striker system, with Pepe acting as the ultimate physical decoy.
The ink.
Right. We looked at the geometry and pressure that created a historic back-to-back own goal anomaly. We waded into the dark, controversial history of referee Felix Ware and the fiery Australian blowback. And finally, we explored the evolutionary science of 70,000 Seattle fans acting as a literal 12th man.
And this is exactly why looking at a diverse stack of sources is so critical for you, the listener.
Oh, 100%.
If you only read the American press this week, you'd think this was a pristine tactical masterclass and a pure triumph of American sporting will.
Yeah.
If you only read the Australian press, you'd think it was a scandalous match-fixed robbery. The reality, as we've seen, lives in the muddy intersection of both narratives.
Which leaves us with one final thought to mull over. As you watch the rest of this World Cup, pay close attention to the post-match interviews.
Definitely.
When you see a coach or a player absolutely fuming at a microphone, blaming the referee, the schedule, or the pitch, ask yourself, are you listening to a genuine cry for justice against a broken system?
Right.
Or are you just witnessing a necessary psychological coping mechanism, a way for elite competitors to avoid facing the uncomfortable, muddy reality that they simply got tactically outplayed?
A fantastic lens to carry forward into the rest of the tournament.
Keep questioning the narratives, stay curious, and enjoy the games.